Imagine a kingdom torn apart by politics, religion, and power. A king who believed his authority came directly from God, a parliament determined to limit that authority, and a bloody conflict that would forever change Britain's path toward modern democracy. This is the story of the English Civil War. The roots of the conflict stretch back decades, but at its heart was one man, King Charles I. Charles believed in the divine right of kings, the idea that his power came directly from God and could not be challenged by earthly institutions like Parliament. To him, compromise was weakness. But Parliament saw things differently. Many of its members, especially the wealthy gentry and aristocracy, wanted a greater say in how the kingdom was governed. They sought to check the king's powers, particularly over taxation and law. Religion added fuel to the fire. England was deeply divided. The official Church of England leaned towards traditional rituals and hierarchy, which Charles strongly supported. But a growing number of Protestants, known as Puritans, demanded simpler, stricter forms of worship. They saw Charles's policies and his marriage to a Catholic queen as dangerously close to Catholicism. Distrust grew, tensions mounted, and the fragile relationship between king and parliament shattered. By 1642, disagreement had spiraled into open war. On one side stood the royalists known as Cavaliers, loyal to the king and his belief in absolute monarchy. On the other side were the parliamentarians, or Roundheads, determined to limit his power. England descended into bloody civil conflict, with battles raging from the Scottish borders to the West Country. Families, communities, and even churches found themselves divided. At first, the war's outcome was uncertain, but then came the rise of Oliver Cromwell. A relatively obscure member of Parliament, Cromwell proved to be a brilliant organizer and military leader. He helped create the new model army, a disciplined professional fighting force that stood in stark contrast to the often disorganized royalist troops. With strict training, strong morale, and a sense of religious mission, the new model army turned the tide of the war. By 1646, Charles I was defeated and captured, but peace was far from secure. The king refused to compromise, plotting behind the scenes to regain his throne. Renewed fighting broke out in what became known as the Second Civil War. Once again, Cromwell and the parliamentarian forces prevailed. This time, Parliament made a radical decision. Charles I was put on trial, the first European monarch ever to face a public court for treason against his own people. In January 1649, Charles was found guilty and executed outside the banqueting house in Whitehall. The shockwaves were immense. For the first time in English history, the king had been held accountable by his subjects. In the aftermath, England abolished the monarchy and House of Lords, declaring itself a republic known as the Commonwealth. In practice, power soon concentrated in the hands of Oliver Cromwell. As Lord Protector, Cromwell ruled with near absolute authority, supported by the army. While his government championed some ideas of liberty and religious tolerance, it was also marked by censorship, harsh rule, and unpopular campaigns in Ireland and Scotland. The dream of a lasting republic began to sour. When Cromwell died in 1658, the fragile system collapsed. His son Richard lacked his father's authority, and chaos returned. By 1660, the people in Parliament invited Charles II, son of the executed king, back to the throne in what became known as the Restoration. The monarchy was back, but it would never again wield unchecked power. So, what is the legacy of the English Civil War? It didn't bring about full democracy, but it raised vital questions. Can a ruler act without the consent of the governed? What rights do people have to challenge authority? The war laid early foundations for the constitutional monarchy and parliamentary system we know today. Yet it also showed how the quest for liberty can lead, paradoxically, to military dictatorship. The English Civil War remains one of the most dramatic and influential chapters in British history. A struggle of ideas as much as of armies, and one that shaped the principles of power, liberty, and accountability that continue to resonate today. So what do you think? Was the execution of King Charles a brave step towards liberty, or a dangerous precedent that unleashed years of turmoil? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this dive into history, don't forget to like, follow and share. It really helps us bring more stories of Britain's past to life.